Greetings, friends. I'm Galen, and welcome to the Gaming Adventure and Discovery Explorers.
A show about our adventures and discoveries as we explore the world of gaming. I'm Chad.
On today's show,
Battlestar Galactica.
let's explore. Chad, how you doing?
Hi. Hey, Galen. Whew, I'm great. I just had a long day at work, so I'm just kind of getting settled as it is as we try to fit these things in.
Perfect. Settle into the nice, easy chair of gaming conversation.
Yeah, it's ironic that you say that because, like, I don't have a great recording space, so I'm, like, literally on this stool, hunched over my microphone, like, in my room. But what I learned is the audio is so much better when I record in here.
There you go.
And there's less background noise and a lot of reasons.
We suffer for our art, Chad. There we go.
Yeah, I suffer. Yeah, so yesterday I'm so obsessed with Fallout New Vegas, I have to tell you.
Oh, great. Yeah.
All my free time, which isn't extraordinary, but like more than usual, is going to this game. It's like it's the thing. So, and I think I'm only like I've barely started it. Like, case in point, I have not even reached New Vegas yet in the game.
Okay.
And I've been playing it like 10 hours or something, which I know to a lot of gamers is not that much, but for me, like 10 hours in like a week and a half or 2 weeks is a lot.
Substantial.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, I'm really enjoying that. I'm blasting people and creatures with my laser gun and getting killed and sometimes all that kind of fun, super fun stuff.
So what is it that hooks you about it? Would you say like the main thing that grabbed you about it?
This is both what I love and what I would love more of is that post-apocalyptic Mad Max feel. So like my character's got this leather armor and you have to count your ammo and it's a big deal and you have this sense that if you get injured it could really be a problem, like a real significant problem. And I would want more of that because one of the problems is that it doesn't feel very open. Like so far it's a pretty crowded world, frankly. Like you can see like 3 cities from the most desolate place that I've been into. So there's never a fear that you'll be, there's no like wasteland really.
Right.
And I get it. Like you want to have things to do and that's just the game they made. And that's fine. Yeah. It's not really a critique as much as I also want to play that game, the Mad Max game that it feels like this in so many ways, but open. Yeah. And and like there's not really cars. Like there are cars in this game, but you don't really drive them, especially at least where I am. It's not Grand Theft Auto,
Yeah.
If it were, like, how cool would that be? Like, like a Skyrim engine plus some Grand Theft. And I haven't played the later Grand Theft Autos. I only played through San Andreas, which was great. But like Mad Max feel with Grand Theft Auto gameplay, a little more open.
Yeah.
With the post-apocalyptic resource management.
I gotcha.
I think that would be
it sounds
great.
Fun. I would join you in that world.
Yeah. It's not quite what this is, but still I'm enjoying, running around and, whatever.
It's interesting that you say that because I think about that a lot of times with games that I play, especially video games, where there's something about it that I like, a kernel of something that I really like in the game that, like you said, makes me want to play that game. That's a different game than the one I'm playing. But I keep playing the one I'm playing, and there's some things about it I might not like so much or whatever. It's fine, but it makes me keep my eye out for that other game.
Exactly. I feel that way a lot about ship combat games. Like I think they get so close so often to what I really want to be playing, and I'm not even sure I can really put language around exactly what I want to play.
Sure.
But
yep.
Something, and there's a few games that are really close that scratch this itch a lot, but a little bit of Firefly / Serenity where you have a ship and you have a crew and you a little bit of Star Trek where you're exploring and have some kind of fun technology and some ship combat that's kind of slow and big and whatever. But anyway, in the opposite direction, I just met someone on Twitter. We were actually having a Twitter discussion. There were at least 3 of us in this Twitter thread about 5th edition, mostly 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons about an advancement. And I think I approach it from that direction because that's really just what I'm playing, role-playing game-wise. But the topic was you don't have to advance at all in games. Like you could just play like a lot of the Marvel Heroes games or a lot of those games. You don't really advance. You can, but it's not really built in very well.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have like linear experience points based advancement, like in Dungeons and Dragons, which is either experience points. You can have DM's fiat. Then you can also, this is the idea that it was actually George Meir from Austria. He chimed in and made the point of you can also, I think it was his point, or it was the other person who it was in the thread. Or advancement can be based on the complexity that the players are accustomed to. In Dungeons and Dragons, especially, your character gets more complicated every level.
Yes.
And whenever the player gets bored, that might be the time to do the advancement. Like not really a story reason, but a gameplay reason, which I just thought was really interesting. Yeah, and then someone else chimed in and was like, and also like your character can get worse. Like there's no rule that your character has to get better as play continues.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, ooh. And actually, when we get to the Mohrnheim updates, I have a little story about that.
Oh, great.
About an example where that had happened.
All right.
Completely coincidentally. So, I was chatting with George, and I hope he doesn't mind that I call him by his first name. Anyway, he sent me this game that he's been working on. A game and some archetypes for other games. And so he's got these... And I just want to mention because it really looks interesting. And I don't know if I'll find a way to play it or not, but I at least want to share it with everyone out there to look into because it looks really fun. So the game itself is called Mitch Tim Fluffy Adventures.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought you might. A lot of people do. Not just that you're weird or anything, but it's like, yeah, no, you like fluffy things. And he describes it as, I like to say it's like Shadowrun, but you're hamsters. You're tiny, you have a big heart, an important mission, massive human corporations as antagonists, and magic and tech at your disposal. So it sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a 5th edition race, so you can play one of these hamsters. They're not called hamsters, but in the game, but you can play hamster in 5th edition, or Starfinder, or Star Trek Adventures. So these are just like supplements for these, and there's a standalone game. Yeah, and so I'll put the links in the notes. www.mitchtim.com. That's MICHTIM. So you can look him up. And I'd recommend, like, if you're interested in that, it's not as crunchy as 5th edition. And I haven't looked at the system very closely yet, so I can't really speak to it. But it sounds pretty fun. And I was also thinking about it. It might make a good, I say gateway game, but I just mean a game that's more compelling for people who aren't into the complexity of Dungeons and Dragons and the games that you and I like.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I know we have some people in our lives who like to play and like socializing, but don't have as much tolerance for, as many layers of rules as D&D has.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
That might be a way. That might be a way to kind of get them involved. So I don't know. We'll see. More to come on that, I think, as I dig deeper.
Oh wow! And I was just I was clicking through from the Mitch Tim website to the drive-through RPG, where it looks like you can buy all those books, and the prices seem pretty reasonable to me.
Oh yeah. And actually, I don't even know because he sent me a lot of the stuff. It's all PDF versions, but he gave me a discount code, so I got a lot of that stuff for free.
Excellent. Well, something to check out. And awesome.
Galen, you were not able to attend our last Mohrnheim Halcyon.
I wasn't, and I was really looking forward to it too, but I was called away. So, tell me, Chad, how did I die? How did Mend die horribly?
It was a total party kill. No, it was not. Yeah, and we missed you. But on the other hand, I feel like it was an average session. There's some sessions that you just nailed it, and it's like, oh, that was the best. And some, I feel like my prep wasn't maybe as tight as sometimes it is, or didn't feel as tight. It was okay. Like I think everyone had fun, and I introduced a lot of cool ideas. But plot-wise, Mend, your character is still in a walking trance, a la Spock
His
mode.
fugue state.
Yes. But as a DM, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do half the stuff I want to do if they don't have a healer. So I allowed Mend to be a heal bot. And he could only cast healing spells based with the slots from the cleric level, the third level cleric.
Yeah.
And that just seemed to kind of open things up a little bit. And so Mend was able to kind of walk around. We put the mini on the board during combat, but wasn't able to do anything else other than cast healing spells.
Yeah.
Which I actually recommend that approach. Like, I know the Spock mode is not super satisfying, but it helps kind of just not be super constrained by party with no healers.
Exactly, like you said, especially like a party with no healing in D&D is going to have problems if you want to put them through anything, that would stress the party at all. I think it's a great call on your part to do that.
And I wanted to stress the party. So we started with Lilith. So the character Lilith had been her player had been away for a few sessions, so she was separated from the group. And it was only a day in game time. So she essentially just stayed in this dark room for a day. And she heard some noises, and it sounded like maybe some sniffling noises that might be a child first. And then the noises of another group. And so she called out to the group that she heard. And it turned out that there was a group of Yuan Ti scouts.
Oh.
So the snake people. Oh. And they were pretty reasonable to her. They parlayed and had a reasonable discussion.
Okay.
And one of them agreed at her request to kind of help guide her and help look for the child.
Okay.
And the others left, and Lilith learned that they're there to kind of scout out the fallen city, and that the Yuan Ti used to be occupants of the area beneath Mohrnheim.
Oh.
And so they are positing a return to their fallen city.
Interesting.
Then I cut over to the other group, and they, as you might remember, they were in the fallen city in a house about to explore. The house had been cleared, and so they left and caught the track of the missing child that they were in pursuit of, and followed it along. And then they heard a scream, and so did Lilith, and so everyone converged towards the scream, and so that's when the party was returned to its full strength.
Excellent.
Actually, we had another player who was missing, Arias, so I just kind of hand waved. I forgot about that. Anyway, so they converged to find several ghouls and one ghast around looks like some sort of grating or something underneath a large, kind of adjacent to this large building. It looked like it was actually a ziggurat, a pyramid, stepped pyramid.
Okay.
That was, the top of it was collapsed into the ceiling, or was like into the ceiling, and the bottom of it looked like might have sunk. And so this grate was an entry point. And so they heard screaming, and they fought the ghouls. The ghast had a magic sword, black stone in the hilt.
Ooh, that sounds evil.
Yeah. And so the party did pretty well, and the Yuan Ti helped. And the ghast tried to escape after it was injured, and the battle was starting to go the other way. The party was able to kill the ghast. However, another ghoul managed to snatch the magic sword and flee before the party could stop it. Yeah.
Okay.
So the party then followed the track into the great area, and that entered this ancient and somewhat abandoned-ish Yuan Ti temple, where they encountered a vampire mist. And they survived that and got blood everywhere. It was like a cloud of mist with blood in it or something.
Oh, nasty. Cool. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And they searched the temple some more, and they lost the track, and they found the track. And they confirmed that it had been a temple to the Raven Queen. However, all the iconography was Yuan Ti in design. So it was the Raven Queen, but instead of a human-structured Raven Queen, it was a snake-structured Raven Queen.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And so then they continued on, and then they went up to the second level, found a room that seemed to be dedicated to torture. And just as the child was being kind of crammed into a cage in the corner of the room by a mummy, which they didn't realize it was a mummy at first, but it was a Yuan Ti mummy also.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, and so they fought the mummy, discovered that mummies are vulnerable to fire. They did not know that before, and rescued the child. And we were nearing the end of the session at that point, so we kind of hand waved their return, that they were able to.
Okay.
They decided to retrace their steps because it was actually a skill check, I think a history skill check. They deduced that there would probably be more powerful creatures if they went up, even though they had reason to believe that there was an exit up through the ziggurat.
Okay.
So they retraced their steps, and a little of it was like just time management.
Sure.
It was pretty easy because I really wanted to stop the session at a kind of a chapter break.
Yeah.
And so I let them kind of escape. And they were retracing steps that they had already been through. So so that's more or less where it ended. 2 of the characters will be advancing in level. Tenley and Lilith will be at 4th level next session.
Excellent.
And we have some downtime coming up as well. So I told them that, and so everyone's kind of thinking about how they'll be spending their downtime. So it sounds like at least one character is interested in pursuing the cannibals that you had encountered.
Yep.
One character, not Lilith, but Tahari, the other rogue, who's actually a thief archetype.
Right.
took some treasure from the mummy's room and triggered a curse. And so she is cursed for removing treasure from the mummy's tomb.
I love it.
And so her first priority is to find a way to get that curse removed from her.
Yeah, it is.
And then poor Lilith, remember I was telling you how one of the characters actually had some reduced capability. Lilith got cut in the eye during combat. So I know you'll remember, but just for the everyone else, if a character gets knocked unconscious or is dying, usually by, specifically by going under 0 hit points, I roll on the injuries table in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And that happened. And I think I rolled a 1, so it's like the lowest one. And so her eye is quote, permanently damaged. It will take a regenerate spell to return. And so she gets disadvantage on ranged attacks and I think vision-based perception rolls.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's I'm pretty pleased with it. So,
how did the player take that?
She was fine. She thought it was, there was the appropriately of the like, like, oh, dang. So, yeah, but she was fine. And the cool thing about that is it's real. Like, that's a real mechanical disadvantage.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't impact the core character. Really, and what she has designed that character to do. As a DM, I would have been more concerned about, if she couldn't shape change, because she's a changeling, or couldn't do some of her rogue abilities or something, then I don't know. I'd have at least think twice about it. But.
Yeah, it would at least probably have to be a discussion with the player, right?
Yeah,
to see if that's something that they're interested in, even in pursuing at all.
Yeah, because then I might have made the kind of recouping from it a little easier or something. Because the regenerate spell's going to be pretty tough to get. Like, that's a pretty powerful magic. It's not just a heal or something, So.
Yep. Right.
So that's where we left off.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Wonderful. Yeah, what questions do you have?
About some stuff in there. The first one is the Yuan-ti. Were they a species that had been encountered by any of the party before?
One of the zombies from the last session was a zombified Yuan-ti.
Okay.
And they had found some evidence, some historical evidence of like a record of a Yuan-ti presence in that Undercity. It was just to kind of see how the sausage is made. It was something I had rolled off of the trinkets table. It was like a brass ball sphere. And I had just added that inscribed on it was a historical record of how the Yuan-ti had lived under Mohrnheim before. So there was some mention of it, not actual encountering of a Yuan-ti, but I had dropped some clues last session.
Okay.
Part of it was that I want to, just as we did with the gnolls and made them more three-dimensional and more realistic, I want to be doing that with the Yuan-ti as well. Like, there are definitely Yuan-ti who will eat humans and want to murder them, but I think they're much more interesting if they have a variety of interests and motivations and whatever. So what's in the monster manual is the human record of what how Yuan-ti came to be. But it's not necessarily, and probably not, the truth.
That was actually my second follow-up question, was regarding knowledge of the Yuan-ti by players, player knowledge, and how if any players had preconceived ideas about the Yuan-ti and how that affected their initial encounters with them.
I don't think any of the players at the table had ever looked at the Yuan-ti in the DM's guide. I think one actually probably had. One probably had, but he's actually, I don't know, I'm guessing. I think he knows, I've DM'd for him a lot. It's actually Kaikoni. And so I think Kayakoni also knows that I often adjust monsters to fit my world. Right. So he gave no signs of having preconceived notions about it, about the Yuan-ti. And the other players are relatively new, and I just don't think it's ever come up for them, so they didn't really know. Now, nobody likes snakes. Nobody at the table was a snakeophile. Is that a word? Yeah. Serpentophile or whatever?
Sure.
So Kayakoni's character Tenley had actually done a history check in the previous session about the Yuan-ti and rolled very middling. And so I just kind of regurgitated the monster manual, which is what a human would have been taught in school about them.
Right.
They eat humans and kind of cannibalistic and evil and all that stuff. So.
That sounds great, Chad, especially following up with our talk about the gnolls.
Yeah.
putting it into practice, and especially given like the in-game knowledge that you gave the players, right? You gave them, this is what you remember, and it's all bad. But what you're encountering is not that.
Yeah.
Your ideas are being challenged. What you know as truth is being challenged. And I think that's fantastic. I love that.
So one thing is that Moira was not who plays Lilith, who encountered the Wanti first, was not at the previous session where they had gotten that historical knowledge. So I wasn't quite able to build on it to make that super interesting, to really see, to put them in a position where their historical knowledge conflicted, or at least potentially conflicted, with their experience.
Right.
She was just trapped in a room and was outnumbered and wanted to get out of the room. So it's like, well, sure, you're going to talk to anybody who could let you out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the nature of her character is that she's not going to fight first, without good reason.
Yeah.
So a little of that was just kind of the, happy circumstance.
That sounds great. I look forward to the next session and seeing what happens to Mend. What he gleaned from all of his sort of wandering around aimlessly.
Yeah, with vague experience.
Yeah.
And so with that, let's shift on to our main topic.
Battlestar Galactica. Yeah.
And before we go any further, I will mention that we will be spoiler-free until about halfway or two-thirds of this segment. We'll talk about some spoilers at the end, but until then, you can listen, and we'll stay very high level and try not to give anything away. We're just going to touch briefly on the old show, but did you watch the old show, the 1978 Battlestar Galactica?
I'm sure I did. I have a few memories of it.
Okay.
And I know I had some Battlestar Galactica toys.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Me too.
So I'm sure that I watched some of it. I couldn't tell you plot line to save my life.
Okay, all right. I remembered a little bit more. I don't know why. I had read the novelization too, and I was pretty into it. So when the miniseries was announced, so that was in 2003, of the reimagined show, I was really intrigued because I had this great affection for the old show, but I hadn't watched it for probably 15, 20 years at that point. But just real quick, the premise of the old show, though, was kind of hilarious because Glenn Larson was the producer, and he was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, so the Mormons. And so he had very intentionally kind of structured this, kind of rooted in part of the kind of Mormon story is they traveled into the American West kind of looking for their homeland. It's not only Mormon, but I mean, this structure is also part of the Mormon religion.
Right.
And so, when they settled in Utah, that was kind of their promised land to them. And so in Battlestar Galactica, it's kind of the same idea, right? It's like a group of ships flying looking for their promised land.
Yes. Yep. A bunch of refugees.
Actually, both shows are structured that way. But that was what he was inspired by, was his religious stories. And, of course, that's also the Jewish religion and the Christian religions, and Islam to an extent shares the story of the Hebrews fleeing Egypt, traveling for 40 years and with led by Moses to the Canaan promised land. So very similar, very common stories. I'm sure there's other religions that have similar patterns. But anyway, also called Wagon Train in Space is how it was described. Yeah, so the premise is there's humans, there's one combat ship, which is the Battlestar Galactica, all these civilians, and they're being chased by the Cylons, who are these the evil robots who want to destroy them. That's the premise of both shows. Yeah. Did you watch the miniseries when it came out?
I did. Yes, I did.
So the miniseries was really the outcome of a lot of attempts to reboot the franchise. It had some comics over the years, and Richard Hatch, who was on both shows is a different character on both shows, also was a part of some creative efforts to try to reboot the show, and none of it worked. And then in 2003, Ron Moore came up with a 3-hour miniseries. So the miniseries was clearly a part of this post 9/11 kind of cinematic world. And I think this was a strength, and it's just an interesting reflection. The way the crisis unfolded for the humans and the way people learned about it and the way they talked about it and acted, I think very much was informed by the way, those of us kind of watching television that day in 2001 experienced that.
Yep.
Did you notice that as well?
I did.
Like that feel?
Yeah, definitely. And it was through every aspect of it, right? It was through not just the storyline, but also the way it was shot.
Yes.
The cinematography of it lent it to that particular style as well. So it kind of infused everything in there.
Yeah. And they stayed really true to that camera style, especially for the first several seasons. I think as the show progressed, it drifted a little bit. And so what I think what we're talking about is that the camera really much had a point of view. It was like somewhere, like watching. It wasn't like this omniscient camera. It was, if you were a person on a ship watching these characters or watching the space battle or watching whatever, that's what it would look like. And then as it progressed, I think they just felt a little too constrained by that. But definitely in the miniseries and the first few seasons.
Yeah. And it really helped to set a tone for the series, right? Because it was a very stark way of doing it.
Yes.
And it was so different than anything else that was going on TV at the time.
Yes.
And I think it all came together and really grabbed people.
And I have to say, even though it was part of this post 9/11, it was all completely in the subtext. There's some parts of the show that are just that have a little closer touching to current events that were going on, but that especially I think was just kind of a artistic view, not so much a comment directly.
Yeah.
I don't think anyway. You know, some really notable things about the show though is that they got Edward James Olmos, who has always been this just amazing actor, and Mary McDonnell were the two kind of name performers who got signed onto the show that really anchored it, I thought.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
And just gave some amazing performances all throughout the whole, not just the miniseries, but also the miniseries, just throughout the whole show. And their chemistry was just amazing with each other and with the other characters or actors. And
of the main actors in that original miniseries, those were the only two that I'd ever seen before. And I think, just talking about it from a business end, anchoring it with two names was, I think, a really good idea. Because, it's like, we know these people. We know they do really solid work. And now let's see what everyone else can do around them. And the rest of the cast was phenomenal. It was really good.
Yes. So the miniseries was, like we said, was 3 hours long. And then there was quite a gap before the main series started. And, I've heard some comments by the actors, too. And there was quite a gap for them as well. Like, time passed. And it took them a long time to get before the network picked it up, before the Sci-Fi Channel picked it up and they shot again. And several months. It was 2004, I think, when it was shown. Actually, it was in January of 2005. Produced in 2004, shown in the U.S. in 2005. It looks like it was released earlier in the U.K. I had no idea. It continued on through 4 solid seasons. I think there was a large gap between, I believe it was season 3 and season 4 was one large gap. Do you remember? I think that's right.
I think so, yeah.
I think there was like a year-long gap or more, and then there was another gap between the halves of season 4. So season 4 was cut in half. Part of the challenge of the show was that there was a writer strike halfway through season 4, and so narratively they had there was some kind of significant stuff that had happened, kind of wrapped up. Potentially, and there was whispers that the crew and cast did not know that they would be able to come back for the final half of the final season.
Right.
Just because, people get scared, right? I don't think they had any concrete reason to think they wouldn't, but
you never know.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, they also had a few. They had, I believe, 3 direct to DVD kind of TV movies / DVD movies. The Razor was one. That was the first one in 2007. And then The Plan, which actually was not produced by Ron Moore, was directed by Edward Olmos, though, essentially kind of retells the entire 4-season show from the perspective of the Cylons.
Yeah, right.
So the plan of the Cylons really definitely changes throughout. Like, first they attempt genocide, and then they try to finish the genocide, and then they want to kind of coerce and control the humans, and then it just goes all over the place. And it's like, well, what is their plan?
Yeah, exactly. So exactly.
That show just did a great job of explaining their own dynamics. Then there was a web series called Blood and Chrome, which was also released on DVD, but I don't think had any of the original cast from the other series.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
It's focused on a younger version of William Adama. So that's Edward Olmos's character. And I believe that actor had played young Adama in some other webisodes, and that was put on Razor, the DVD. So I think technically it kind of appeared in the show.
Technically,
but never interacted with any of the other actors.
Right, right.
I think he just fought Cylons and flew a ship, I think. Man, imagine being that actor. And you could tell me, wouldn't that just suck? You get a role on Battlestar Galactica, and you never get to work with any of the cast.
Yeah, right. It's like,
could you imagine?
Show up as your thing, and it's like, it's great, Battlestar Galactica. It's like, who am I working with? Nobody.
Yeah.
It's like,
you bring your Mary McDonald like photo to have her sign.
Right.
Like no, and she's not there.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's all green screen. Like, oh man, suddenly I feel really bad for that guy. Luke Pasqualino is his name.
He probably enjoyed his paycheck though. So
yes, it's good to work, right?
Yeah, it is. It is indeed.
And hey, here we are, like 10 years later, saying his name. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And then other kind of results from Battlestar Galactica. There was a prequel spin-off television show called Caprica, which only, I think, lasted a season. And I have to say, I did not enjoy it. I watched a bunch of it, and I didn't like it. Did you watch that at all?
I didn't watch it. I did not watch Caprica. No.
It had really good science fiction elements, like legit.
Yeah.
But none of the characters were relatable whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was like the exact opposite of the Battlestar Galactica, where even the biggest villain, so Gaius Baltar is really the main antagonist. In the original show, he was like this kind of mustache twirling bad guy, and in this show, he was very nuanced. But part of the problem occasionally was that he's a little too nuanced, and you kind of find yourself pulling for him a little bit. But in Caprica, like everybody is just awful. Like there are good performances. Like Eric Stoltz is in it, and he's good as a performer, but it just isn't fun. I think that's why it got canceled. Like it just wasn't fun. And then there were numerous comic books, novelizations. I think I mentioned I had read the original show had a novelization that I read. A board game, which we've talked about, which I love. I think you like it a lot.
Yes, indeed. Well. Yeah.
I have to be honest. Like of the spin-off things that I'm aware of and have encountered, that's the strongest. Like that's the most. Like it is what it is. And it's so much fun.
It is. Yeah.
So much
fun. And it's fun, like you were saying about Caprica, that there's nothing relatable about those characters. Even the board game, it's easy to go ahead and play that character from the show.
Yeah, it does. You get sucked into it.
Exactly, yeah.
I know. I have made bad decisions in that board game because I wanted to be in support of the character that I was playing.
Yep,
like,
I totally agree.
Even though tactically, it was like...
Oftentimes I make decisions like that in that game.
Other notable things, so I had mentioned before Richard Hatch, who played Apollo, who was one of the kind of young protagonist action adventure characters from the original 1978 show, was also a very significant, he was, I think, technically a guest star. He was in many episodes throughout the series, from season 1 all the way through season 4. Yeah. Was this great. And may he rest in peace. I know he passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah, passed away in 2017.
Yeah. And there was a promotional, I think it was on the DVD and might have been on the Sci-Fi Network, but so Dirk Benedict played Starbuck in the original show. So they did this thing, it was before the miniseries had aired. So they had Katie Sackhoff, who played the now female Starbuck in the reimagined show, meet up with Dirk Benedict and have coffee at Starbucks. So Starbuck and Starbuck at Starbucks, right? And he is such an ass like to her.
Oh no.
Like, he was bent out of shape that they had changed the gender of the character.
Oh God.
And there's definitely a chauvinism there.
Yeah.
Also, why take that out? And Katie Sackhoff at the time was like maybe 24 or something. I don't know, but she was not. It's not her fault. Like she's this young up and coming, got a great role.
Yeah, she got a starring role on a TV series. You kidding me?
Yeah. Which made her career in a lot of ways. Yeah. And she nailed it. Like she was so great in that. And it was just another of, all your faves are problematic. It was just another one of those moments of like, oh.
Right. Right.
You're just a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, and you're a bit of a chauvinist.
Yeah.
You might be a misogynist, but definitely a chauvinist. Like, sorry those out there who really love Dirk Benedict. And he was in the A-Team and he was my favorite.
I know, right? Yeah.
Now he's just an old curmudgeon.
They always say never meet your heroes.
As far as kind of switched character identities, Boomer is another character who was black in the first show and was played by Grace Park, who was an Asian American woman. So that was a switch for sure.
And I do believe the actor that played Boomer on the original Galactica was brought back for a guest starring in the new series. I don't want to delve too deeply in it because of spoiler issues, but
well, hold on, let's confirm. Hold on,
let's make sure. Let's make sure.
Well, let's figure out what this guy's name is first.
The gentleman's name is Herbert Jefferson Jr.
So do you know? Wait, can you? If you find,
let me make sure.
Oh, there he is. Okay, I'll race you. Oh, he's still alive. Hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
Lives in Georgia, 72. Oh, he was in Knight Rider, Airwolf. Man, he was in all the cool shows. If you're 10,
Maybe I was wrong on this guy. It looks like I made something up, which is good that we checked.
Glad we checked. He's a busy actor, though. He's been in a lot of stuff. He had a really great career.
Yeah.
Holy cats. Mostly 70s and 80s, but even in 2015, he was in
a Star Trek TV series. Star Trek Renegades.
Yeah,
I don't know.
What is that?
Star Trek Renegades does not ring for me. I don't know that one.
I know, that's not a thing, is it? I'm so confused. Okay, so this is not a Star Trek show. Herbert Jefferson Jr. was great in that show, but he was not in the reimagined series.
Not.
Okay, and some other amazing talent that they got on as the show progressed. So not an actor, but Bear McCreary is the composer who's just did this soundtrack that just knocked it out of the park. It gives me goosebumps like to this day.
Yeah.
And Lucy Lawless guest starred, but really played an important role and was in several episodes across a few of the different seasons. And Dean Stockwell also came onto the later, I think, season 3 and season 4, maybe season 2. In fact, I think it might have been when he was introduced. So some other real notable talent that came on to the show. And Kate Vernon was great. You know, everybody's just, there's so many great actors. My favorite, I know we're about to get into the favorites, but so my favorite actor was Michael Hogan, who played Saul Tigh, the executive officer.
Yep.
I just love to death. And then, you know, other stars, mostly who were, I think, made in this show in a lot of ways. Like, so Katie Sackhoff, we already talked about. Jamie Bamber, who I actually saw at the Emerald City Comic Con in like 2008 or something on a panel, and he did great. It was super fun. And so James Callis, I think we already talked about. Trisha Helfer, who was a model beforehand, is in, I think, like every episode and just did some amazing performances throughout the show, especially for someone without a ton of experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And so many others. Am I missing somebody who we really need to talk about?
I have to point out, because we're right up against that favorites category.
Yeah. Well, maybe should we switch into the favorites? Should we just
Let's do it? Yeah, let's switch into the favorites. Yeah.
All right, and I think we're going to call that the first part of our Battlestar Galactica episode. So tune in 2 weeks where we talk about other things that we love and things that we think would be even better than if they had been adjusted a little bit. If you have comments or questions, we'd love to hear it. So I can be reached best on Twitter at ContClockwise, ContClockwise. And Galen, how should people reach out to you?
Twitter as well is the best way. You can send me a tweet at @Zobmie, Zobmie. Love to hear what you think about the discussions so far. And if you have any ideas about Battlestar Galactica things that you've enjoyed, or any ideas for future shows as well, we'd love to hear those.
Awesome.
Until next time, folks, take care of yourselves.
And game great.